Okay, beautiful souls. I am so excited to dig in today. We have Kareen Walsh with us, and I can't wait to dig in with her today. Like, she is just such a special guest. She is a visionary business and people strategist, an author, a podcaster, an investor, a 7-8 figure business building entrepreneur, making her the ultimate business healer, right? She's got nearly 2 decades of experience in optimizing performance in e-commerce, health, wellness, technology, financial industries. Like, she just has this incredible background of how to really support people in building something, like 10xing their income, right? And just really allowing C-suite executives to turn their vision into impact. I truly can't wait to dig in with Kareen today. She's got this incredible app that's coming out called Hey Kareen. And she's supporting so many people and really up-leveling their vision and what they see possible for their business and what they're leaning into. So I can't wait to dig in with Kareen today. She's one of those people that really does truly believe that we get to become that will really allow us to lean into our vision and allow us to really step into this accelerated timeline for our business. So Kareen, thank you so much for being here. I cannot wait to dig in today and unlock so much of your wisdom into the space.
I am so happy to be here, Christina. Like, I feel like the vibe we both bring to the table of who we serve and how we serve and finding that aligned stance. I'm so excited to discuss whatever you want today. I'm here to serve.
Let's do it. I love it. So let's think about this. So knowing this idea of you get to become that you need to become in order for your vision to accelerate your growth. Like, I remember you're talking about this. What does that mean to you? Like, someone stepping into the becoming of this version of their vision so they can accelerate. It sounds like some manifestation language, but what does that mean to you? Like, stepping into that becoming.
Yeah. So, I think we all sit with a vision of what we desire, but we forget to ask, who do I actually have to become to step into it? Like, we can visualize all day and be like, and also manifest certain things. Like, I want to hit 7 figures in business, or I want to own this house, or I want to drive this car. Or I want, like the manifestation and visualization, I think, has always kind of been in a tangible space. And when I went from, yes, focusing on tangible, because you want to know what you're trying to accomplish so that it does show up in the physical earth and the physical matter, but truly to achieve it, if we don't pause to ask ourselves, like, well, who do we have to be to actually lead it, was the game changer that happened in my own journey, but also how I've helped so many other entrepreneurs get out of their own way and step into the role that they're meant to play and enjoy the ride. Because that was the other part of it. Like, I don't believe in the suffering for success. I feel that's an antiquated model. Yeah. And the only reason why you're suffering for it is that you're being someone you're not in order to achieve something physical that actually doesn't fill you up. So I started to focus on, well, who do you need to become? Because maybe who you need to become is putting less of an effort forward, actually, and letting other people step forward to do their gifting. Or maybe who you need to become is someone who works at a slower pace because it's actually more methodical and more enjoyable and more creative, as opposed to like the hustling push, right? So having that conversation, I feel, has been helping so many, but also it allows us to stand on our aligned versions of ourselves. I always use that word of alignment because it feels like we can be in flow and receive the gifting meant for us without becoming someone we're not, and then suffering on the inside in order to do that.
Just so much juiciness there. I'm curious, how does one get into alignment? So maybe there's exercises that you help people do that really drop them into the intuitive hits that they get. Because I'm in total agreement around build your business in alignment with your soul. That's where we get the vitality to really scale it. What does that look like when someone is really dropping into, like, what is aligned for me? Let me get to know me. What feels juicy for me? What does that feel like? What does that look like?
Yeah. So the way it shows up in misalignment, right? Like, because I could talk about misalignment first, because I feel like more people are familiar with the misaligned stance.
Yes.
To then be like, oh, wait, there's another way, right? Because I was a very conditioned, misaligned person who was highly successful.
Yes.
right?
Same.
Like on the outside can
Same.
look like amazing, right? But
Yeah.
but on the inside, the way misalignment showed up for me, I had chronic health issues.
Mm.
I had bad relationships around me. My self-talk was so negative.
Mhm.
But on the outside, everyone thought she's got it together. She's accomplished so much, like, oh my gosh, like reverence, right? But it was
Yeah.
to something that felt so broken on the inside. So when I talk about alignment, it is that marriage between self-care, self-knowing, and actualization, right? That the putting it into action from that knowing place, that open, honest place, the I don't know, so I'm going to go ask, or the I really want this thing. I have no idea where I'm going to go to get started, but I really know that if I just have faith, I will step into it and do it, right? Like to me, that is the difference of misaligned versus an aligned stance, is that aligned stance is coming from your truth. It's when that gut hit that you get isn't making you sick, it's actually making you step forward. Right? Like there are those moments where we're just that gut hit and we keep swallowing it down. And then that's why I had digestive issues forever.
Totally.
Because I kept swallowing down the drama,
Yes.
right? And then it becomes someone I'm not in order to show up in a world that I designed, but didn't want any part of it. So the aligned stance is really being able to, when you open your eyes or even put your head down at the end of the night, to have this peace on the inside that said, I am standing in who I am. I might not have it all perfected, but I am standing in my truth and leading from that place. And then guarantee the life around you starts to shift to be what you're meant to have in it, or meant to interact with, meant to put out there, which is why the scaling starts to happen. Because you're not coming from a fractured place. You're coming from a foundational knowing when you make those actions. Yeah.
Ooh, I love that. So what would you say to someone, because I love asking this question, what would you say to someone who they get the intuitive hit on where to go next, and they're like, ooh, okay, I feel aligned, I feel good, and they get the fear at the same time, right? Sure. They're starting to meet their edges because it was already unknown. In existence. Exactly. It's the unknown. How do you guide people through the unknown so that they can really step into self-actualizing what their vision is?
Yeah. So first, I like to make sure we're clear on that vision. So sometimes we get these hits, and it's almost like the one-hit wonder that probably shouldn't get recorded just yet.
Right.
We haven't like baked in it enough. So number one is like to really bake on that vision and sometimes sit in it for a little bit to make sure it is for you. That's number one that I love to encourage people to do, because sometimes, especially if you're into human design and if you're like a manifesting generator, you will see things and do things and see things and do it. That's how I was. I am one, and I was half baking things all over the place.
Yeah. Yes.
Because that's my MO. I could do both. But when I started to actually give myself patience with my vision to be fully baked before I started to actually act in it, because I'm a master of the how. The what I didn't let get clear enough for me to be like, oh, now that's worth stepping into. So that would be the first step I would suggest, is just like sit in your vision a little longer and just get super clear on it, because let yourself play, right? The fear hits because you just don't know yet. It's a new territory. But I would say what squashes fear is action. Yes. So when fear shows up for me, I'm always like, okay, thanks for reminding me what's important to me. I appreciate you. I have gratitude for my fear. I'm like, thank you for showing me that this is really important to me. I appreciate you. I'm still going to step forward because it is my journey. And the fear generally is because of a future state or a past occurrence that happened, but it's not what's happening right now. And so action lives in the now, which is then how do you go from your vision into aligned action, is really to do an assessment. What do you need to know, do, or become in order to go from this is just a vision of mine to actually, actualizing it? And that requires a mini assessment of asking yourself, well, what's going really well that's helping me get towards it? This is my retrospective exercise. I do these monthly calls with people because I'm like, let's just step into aligned action. Yes. So we know you have a vision. Great. Or even a goal you're going towards. Great. Well, what's going really well is question number one, because we want to celebrate which, overachievers don't do much of,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
we want to celebrate the things that
Yeah.
are going well, so we keep going and doing them. And
Yeah.
then the second question is, what do we need to stop doing? Like, what's distracting us from doing it? I had the retrospective monthly call yesterday, and
Mhm.
literally the stop doing from one of the members was procrastinating. She's like,
Yeah.
I need
Oh
to
my
stop
God, procrastinating.
I was like, great,
Yes.
awesome. I love that as an answer, because self-awareness, like,
Yeah.
you're giving yourself excuses, or you're sitting in the fear more than the action. So what does the action need to be? So anyway, so you ask yourself, what do you need to stop doing that's holding you back or distracting you from inching towards that vision, that goal, etc. And then the third question is, what do you need to start doing, so that you could start actually thinking of, well, if, let's say, for example, when I wrote my first book, I was like, I didn't know how to write. I didn't even know a construct of a book. I just had this like huge stretch goal. I mean, because I was told at a young age that I didn't know how to write well, and I wasn't very articulate and all these things. So in my mind, I could have easily sat in that doubt, but I was like, no, I could write a book. There are people who are less smart than me who have books out there. Like, why couldn't I do it? Right. Like, so I had to change my mindset on that. But because I had no clue, the actions that I would take and to start doing was go get a writing coach. Like, it was go talk to other people who have written books. Like, it wasn't just about me getting the fastest way to the end goal. It was about, what do I need to do next to help me inch towards it? And then the final step, the fourth step, is just, what's that one action you're going to take in the next week, 30 days, whatever time measure you want to put against it. I wouldn't go longer than 30 days because you wouldn't probably act in it if you give yourself that much time. I would challenge you to say, in the next 24 hours, what's the one action you could do just to like really want momentum towards things. But then that keeps you on track. And we do that exercise periodically. It's how I achieved 7 figures in my business. It's how I wrote my first book. It's how I wrote my second book. It's how I, align different business models, because it allows me to also pivot when it's not going well. This assessment, doing it periodically, helps you just step into aligned action towards that vision. Because that's the other part too, Christina. I don't know if you've had this with your clients or in your network. People who have this vision initially, and then they're in it and they're miserable. And then they have this fear of letting it go.
Yes.
In that action too, with this assessment, doing it periodically, you actually can let go much faster before you get too far down a path that wasn't meant for you in the first place.
Absolutely.
It makes a difference there too. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. It's so true, because it's true. Like, we're meant to build it in alignment with our soul. And so it is important to say, like, is this actually in alignment? Is this lighting me up? Like, because that's what we need, the vitality to be able to actually build what it is that we want to show up to every day, right? Or days, whatever that looks like for each of us. And so, I think that's so important. I always talk about that example of like taking the advice from the night owl. It's like, oh, they made 7-8 figures taking all their calls at night. So, let me copy paste. And then I realized I'm a morning person. Of course it's not working. Like, of course it's not
working. That sounds like misery to me.
Exactly. Same. I'm like, I'll take your call at 5 a.m., but at 7, goodbye, shutting my lights off. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, that's why it's so important to get in tune with our intuition.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what does that look like for you? Like, getting in tune with your vision, your intuition. What do your spiritual practices look like? Because I love the tangible to-dos, like the taking action. What about the spiritual side?
Yeah. So I'll tell you that my spirit did not feel safe in my body for a long time. And only just recently reconnected truly with it. Like, I feel like now I'm fully embodied. Maybe in the last like 3 years. So it has been magical, and I love it, because I'm literally leading from that place of aligned stance. And in order to sustain the safety, the vessel that I am for my spirit to stay connected, my daily practices have to be intact. So I am very ritualistic. I make sure I'm asleep by 10. I wake up by 4:30, between 4:30 and 6. I don't set alarms, but I'm like, when is the calling to wake up? And I wake up to that. Yeah. And then I start with journaling and getting all my thoughts down. I have an altar that I'm always sitting with gratitude first and asking to be shown what is meant for me today, and who am I meant to gift, and who am I meant to receive from, and just kind of set the intentions. And then I am a breathwork healer, so I do breath work to ground myself and release any stale energy that's not meant for me anymore, because we're constantly going through a cellular restructuring. And if we don't take the time to release what isn't meant to be, then that's what we're carrying around, which was many years of my life. But I am very protective of my energy now. And then I work out, I do something physical where I sweat, because that keeps mental clarity for me. And then at that point, I will start, getting ready for my day and or checking in, like allowing external connection to happen. But I've been in this cycle now for a long time, and it's life-giving, truly is. Like it's really cool to have the rituals to also listen to what my spirit needs in order for it to feel empowered to do what it's meant to do here,
Yes. There's so much there. I just love it. The safety in the body, starting with that at the beginning of the day, so that you can have your soul drop into your body and feel like you're in tandem with it, right? And so, but it's important to feel that safety. Breath work is so powerful. I love that tool to really land into my body too. And something really powerful that I want to just really call to those that are listening to is like, as you were starting your day, you were talking about, I've got, I have my rituals and then I start external communication. That's a huge piece that completely transformed my life too, where it was like, I get this sacred time where it's just me with me, like really connecting it with me, because there's always someone that needs something at every hour of the day, but it can always wait. I think that time is so imperative because it's filling ourselves up so that we can serve. And we're not doing the splits in 12 different directions, trying to, like find our footing and serve the way we want to. So I love how you do that, how you're like, I set the boundary around, I don't have external communication until I'm grounded, I'm rooted, I'm safe, I'm connected, I've sweat out all of the old energy, and I can really serve today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's fractured energy, honestly. And it's residue. Like, I don't know if you've had those days, because I still, there are times with travel, or I keep my rituals up even in other locations. Like, you can sit and focus on yourself anywhere.
Yes,
like
exactly.
Even if it's for a few minutes, like you can do it. Like, if it has to be in the bathroom, do it in the bathroom.
Exactly.
But like, whatever it is.
Been there, done that. Yes. Locking myself in a stall. I'm like, yes.
Yes. There's because when we lead from a place of fractured energy or residue, like the buildup of something that is just not meant for us to carry, that it literally then gets integrated into our actions. And then that's what comes back to us, right? Because whatever we put out there is what we receive in return. And so if we go towards something feeling heavier or feeling resentment or feeling, that stuckness, then that's the energy response we will get in return. We'll get people in our business who feel stuck, versus wanting to propel forward. We'll get the people into our lives that, just want to sit with judgment and critical energy because, we haven't released that out. So finding that method that works for you to stay grounded and feel that aligned energy within that is pure for you, right? Because each of us have our own cadence. Each of us have our own frequency, right? So, and then that's what we'll get in return. And when you know that and you start living it, oh my gosh, the blessings that come is it's pretty phenomenal.
It is that alignment. It feels like miracles suddenly coming out of the woodworks. And you're like, whoa, what just happened?
Juicy.
Yes, right. It's just like, juicy. It's so juicy. I love that word. What I think is so beautiful too is I know we had talked about, in childhood, you were like, I was growing up with a lot of like fear and judgment around what was possible. Yeah. How did you break through that? Because I know a lot of people that are going after their dreams, it's like, again, we get the intuitive hit and then some of that childhood stuff comes through. Sure. What are some of the rituals that you do to start to kind of clear out the old wounding, the old stories, the things that used to keep you stuck, or maybe sometimes still do, like the next iteration of it?
I'll say that with my maturity on the work, right? Because I started the work like super young in facing what's my truth versus that has been imprinted upon me to survive a community, right? Because we all we all come into the world. The first breath is survival breath, right? Like we are now part of some unit that, yes, we may have been called to be a part of, but like how we're about to be raised, clueless, right? So it's one of those situations where that ebb and flow of learning from our family and our school systems and all the things in order to be connected to that community and survive it, we show up a certain way. What I loved about turning 18 and being able to like leave home and go to college and just have my own independent space to make some decisions allowed me to realize, wait, like I actually get to choose a little bit here of who I belong to, how I belong to them. So for me, it was initially distance is what I needed from the things that were dysfunctional to then identify, does that still work for me? Is that my journey, or was that someone else's that I was just having to survive through just to have that relationship or be in that environment because that was the roof over my head or the circumstance I was under. And I would say that has been the identifier for me when it felt off, to then face myself in it. Like I've always been that person who was like, well, how am I showing up in all of this? That I've really had high self-awareness at a younger age, so that I would go seek out the help to dissect it and figure out the words or articulate, what it is that I could be better at or do better with, or block the energy of that other person or end that relationship, whatever it was really the self-discovery start. And then now it's gotten to a point where when the triggers happen, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's interesting that still exists. Like, wow. Like and I'll look at it and be like, am I really triggered by it that it's making me make a certain decision from a misaligned place? Or is it just, I'm triggered because it is still a wound that I'm like, oh, I got to go have a discussion with, if it was an interaction with another person, or I got to talk to myself a little better about that judgment that I'm still feeling, Like yesterday, for example, I posted about this photo shoot I was doing, right? And as a child, I was told many a times that I was fat and I was, not very attractive. And I, like all the judgments because I didn't look like a certain thing. And, but as a child, I also loved the freaking runway and thought I could easily be a model, right? Like there was in my mind's eye, why couldn't I do that thing? I was into fashion and all the things. So it's funny being in a photo shoot yesterday where I was like, that inner child was like, are you sure? Like you can be in front of this camera? And what I'm like, yeah, bitch, we are sure.
We're here. We're going.
It's like, outfit change. Let's go. Like,
yes.
Like you come to the moments where you allow the space to embody the actual activities around who you're truly meant to be, not the stories, imprinted on you. And I feel like that is what really displays growth. But also the control that we each individually have about what we think and what we do about what we think. And I think that's been a big part of my journey in becoming, right? Like it's pretty wild, like how it's come together. So the triggers still happen. It's just a matter of how hard do I want to listen to them? And if it is something that lingers, then I'll go and I'll face it. I'm a bull by the horns type of person, because at this point I have no time to let anything bring me down. So I will go through the hard to get on the other side. Yeah.
And what does that look like? The bull by the horns, going through the hard? Like, is it like breath work? What are you using to kind of help?
All the modalities, girl.
Exactly. Yes.
Like,
same.
I do for example, the journey I'm on now, right? So I'm recently divorced, and it's been a year. So 2 years ending the relationship, but a year officially divorced. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Like, obviously I haven't mastered that love connection, or even it comes from, most people are attracted to the wounds and the others. Like it's a trauma bond, right? So as I was doing that healing, that trauma bond no longer existed. So I had to end that relationship, and both of us grow in separate ways. But now I'm like, okay, deep dive on love life. Like, what does that even look like? I've never done that before. So the bull by the horns for me is going to a Matthew Hussey 7-day retreat coming up in a couple of weeks. So like, go face my love life, like that's, I'm immersive. I don't like things that linger over time. I like to get in. I like to know it. And then I end up sharing it, because if it's something of value to someone else, I will learn it and share it. Like, that's just how I've built everything in my world. So that's what bull by the horns looks like for me.
I
immersive
love it.
experiences, therapists, breath
Yes.
work, all the things.
Same. I'm the exact same. I had a very different experience, but even just last week I had this abandonment wound pop up and I was like, "Oh, I'm scheduling a session with my healer tomorrow morning. Like I want to like get
Face
this
it.
moved,
Yes.
It was like I started to move it myself, but
No.
there's something to be said too about like someone holding a powerful container for
Yes.
you to
Yes.
unravel and release. Like it's like, yes, we can heal ourselves. And there's something really like potent about like letting someone else guide while you just unravel, and knowing you're in the
100%.
safety of it.
Yeah.
It's different trying to like facilitate and be in it and being you. So I personally like I have my healer on retainer for that reason where I'm just like, there's always more.
There
And
is.
so, yeah, just leaning into that space of like just honoring. Like my thing is, I know that when it's coming up, it's because it's ready to move. It's ready to be released. And so instead of looking at it like, oh, this again, or it's whatever the story was that I used to make up, now I'm like, it's here because it's ready. It's ready to
Yeah.
be witnessed. It's ready to be loved, and it's ready to be released.
Yeah.
So
And I
yeah.
love asking when those moments come up too. It's like, well, what's the lesson here? Or what do you want me to know
Mhm.
about why I'm having this emotion right now? It's
Yes.
like that awareness is like something that took me a while to get to questioning when certain triggers happen. Be like, well, what do you want me to understand so I can learn from this and like let's move it forward,
Mhm.
because
Yes.
triggers are going to happen.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's exactly right. Like I have my team also. I have therapists.
Mhm.
I got my psychics. I have my,
Mhm.
my friends that I can get super grounded with because we
Yes.
understand each other. And it's, that 8-minute phone call that just lights
Yes.
you up,
Yes.
But yeah, really facing the trigger to say it doesn't always have to be like this, but I
Mhm.
can get the help for it. I just figure out where I need to be held, really,
Mm,
to
yeah,
process
where I
it.
need to be held. Oh, I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Ooh, that landed like so deeply in my heart space when you said
Yeah.
that, because it's
Yeah.
true. Sometimes we just need to be held by like a friend on a phone call. Sometimes it's like, I need the psychic to tell me what's up, and then
Exactly.
other
Just
times
hold
it's like,
space. Yeah.
yeah, it's like I need the
Hold me.
healer to guide me in through
Yeah.
a process. And sometimes, like even yesterday, I was moving through some stuff and it was like turning on just a funny podcast had
Oh,
me
yeah.
like, that's the medicine I needed. It's like I'm listening to like Jason Bateman, with like Vince Vaughn and it's like
Oh my God.
Heartless.
I've
And I'm
listened to
like,
that one. It's
this,
hilarious.
yes. I was like laughing out loud. And I'm like, the medicine I needed today was just laughter. Like I
Laughter.
just needed
Yeah.
to laugh today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was perfect. I went outside. I just moved the energy that way and listened to that podcast episode and loved it, And so there's something to be said about like just being in tune with what medicine you need right now, like, and that
100%.
it's so supportive for our business too. Cause it's like, and I'm
Yeah.
curious what your advice would be on this. So it's knowing there's so many business owners that are leaning into the space. What business advice would you give them for those that are looking to scale their business, right? Maybe they're going from 6 to 7 figures or 7 to 8. What does that look like? Maybe the advice is different, but what comes through for business advice for those that are looking to scale their business?
Yeah. So your business, I will say this, is your business growth is 100% a reflection of how you are leading it. Meaning, if you are
Mm.
not growing, your business doesn't grow. So the
Oof.
number one thing I always come back to is the who do you have to become? Because yes, you can have these really amazing goals for your business, but you actually might not be the one to take it there. Like the
Mhm.
harsh reality of business is that it's its own engine. And
Mhm.
sometimes it needs a different driver if you're
Mhm.
trying to go down to a different destination, right?
Mhm.
And so facing yourself to say either I have to learn these things to actually run that business that way, because a lot of the time scaling, sometimes people just think it's just the money in the bank, like more sales. But no, when you have more sales, the operations shift. You want your efficiency in that space. And if you have more sales, then you need more customer satisfaction, customer care, like you really
Mhm.
have to think holistically, not just about the end goal of a number. Right.
Mhm.
So we get stuck in the 7, 8, 9 figures, or we think, and it helped me get unstuck thinking. And when I went from 6 to 7 figures was because that's what I had to question. Well, who do I have to become? Because this is how I challenged myself, though, Christina. And I
Mhm.
would love to challenge your listeners with this too. How are
Yeah.
you going to do it, but only using 10% of your time?
Mhm.
So what
Interesting.
if it wasn't you, right? So this is literally when I scaled my business, and I did it in about 6 months, when I
Yeah.
went from, and I'd been running six figures, like no problem, that
Uh-huh.
because that's all I was thinking in that.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
first had to go through the mindset shift of like, well, what seven figures? Like, yes, of course I want to earn seven or even to eight. Like, well, just
Yes.
expand myself, right? At the time, it
Uh-huh.
was to set from six to seven.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, okay, but then I wanted to challenge myself because I easily could have done that if I just wanted to pimp myself out for 500 an hour. That's seven figures, guys. Like that's a
Mhm.
seven-figure business is getting a $500 rate, working 40 hours a week. You make seven figures. Is that the
Right.
life you want? No. I was like, I'm
Mhm.
not going to do that for me. I don't need
Yes.
that for me. I don't want to have that type of lifestyle. So what if I could make seven figures plus, but only use 10% of my time? Who would I have to become? And so what
Mm.
that ended up having me do was analyze what's the role that I need to play in a business like this to allow for the seven-figure earnings, but for the execution to be everyone else or someone else or some other
Yes.
method. Like, how can I be more strategic around how I build this and have my life? Because entrepreneurship also is a choice. You
Yes.
choose that role, you choose to own and build something. So
Mhm.
choose wisely,
Mhm.
right? So
Yes.
when I did that, and I call this the CEO conundrum because we all come across it. When you're in this conundrum of I own this thing, I want to get it
Huh?
to this certain point. The who do I have to become? Well, how do I even identify the role I'm meant to play? So I created this quiz called
Mhm.
the CEO conundrum so that you can identify the ideal role for you and
Mhm.
then go delegate the rest in order to get there. Now, some people also don't have the right strategies on how they get their business there, which is why it's on a fractured foundation. And I would just suggest hiring a strategist to like help
Yes.
you make sure that your business model is sound, which is
Mhm.
what I do. That's where I do sell my time now. Like
Mhm.
I get under the hood of people's
Mhm.
businesses and be like, okay, this is why this won't work. And this is who you
Mhm.
have to become. And this is who you have to hire. But
Mhm.
truly, if you want to do it from a place of grounding, it's to know that it doesn't all have to be on your shoulders.
Mm.
Scaling requires other people. So
Yes.
who do you have to become and then who do you need to bring in are the top two questions I would really start facing if you're trying to get to that next level of your business.
So powerful and so something they could do right now, something I
Yeah.
want to do right now, where I'm going to look into this next level version of my own business and
Right.
really step into that. I love that exercise because
Yeah.
it's true. I mean, one of my mentors always says, if, when she was trying to find her soulmate, she was like, had this epiphany, like, if I want to date a 10, I have to be a 10. Like, what
Yes.
does a 10 look like? And like, who do I have
Start
to
embodying it.
become?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I'm
That's what you attract
attracting.
in.
Exactly. And so same goes for business. If I want the 7, 8 figures, who do I get to become? Thus that I'm attracting that in. So I think that's so powerful to think about it from that perspective.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because a lot of the times I've seen with certain entrepreneurs that opportunity is like knocking at their door,
Mhm.
but they refuse to see that their business could be another way or that
Yeah.
their role in their business, because that's the other thing. I was like, please stop calling your business your baby. Like, stop.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
there's a number, just stop doing it because you did not birth it. It is an entity that's an asset that needs to be leveraged and detached from if you really want it to scale.
Ooh.
Babies you
Yeah.
cannot detach from. You will always be
Yeah.
tethered. There's always going to be that like parent child relationship, but it's not that. Like, so please stop calling your businesses your baby.
Yeah.
If that's the only thing you get from this conversation, because
Yes.
you are too attached to what happens to that child, and I'm using my quotation hands for those who can't see
Yes.
me, that is graduating to that next level, and the what's next, you're always going to be attached to it. So
Mm.
detachment is another energy that's very important, I think, too, in scaling your business, because it's not about you, it's about the business.
Mhm.
And there needs to be a little bit of untethering to happen in order to scale.
Mm. Yes. Is there anything else that you notice when you're, popping the hood up and you're looking at a bunch of different businesses that you're like, there's a common thread here that a lot of businesses need to kind of shift so the foundation isn't cracked? Is there that? Do you see like certain patterns that you're like, if business owners just did this more or did this less,
Yeah.
what typically comes to mind?
I would say the after knowing like who you have to become, it's really validating that what you are trying to put out into the world is actually wanted.
Mhm.
So a lot of people have a fear of rejection, and they don't go validate that their idea actually has buyers against it. So
Yeah.
one of the biggest tests of time, what I like to do with in my evolve methodology, like one of the big phases is validation. Let's validate that the offer you're putting out there is actually desired. Then
Mhm.
you have a business. You don't have a
Right.
business if you don't have buyers.
Right.
There's no
Yes.
business. There's no currency exchange if there isn't someone buying what you've built and what you've invested in to build. So that validation step is the other thing that I think is missed the most, where now you like imagine, because I'm sure you've seen this too, like I'm
Mhm.
attached to this business concept, this service I'm providing or this product I'm providing. And I built it and I put all this money into it. And it's just this like, I'm so excited about putting it out into the world. And now it's time to put it out to the world. And then you have no buyers
Mhm.
because you didn't talk to your ideal clients before you
Mhm.
even built it to begin
Yes.
with.
Yes.
And when that occurs, then you're sitting in this like push. And then the worst is when I see people continue to invest without the validation in place. And then they're millions in the hole of
Mhm.
investment because they got investors on their products. They got all the things. They're really good at sales and they in that capacity in their idea, but
Mhm.
they never validated that there were buyers for it. So I like to always encourage my clients, like even a new offer, for example, like if you can't find 5 people in your current community that are going to buy that offer, then
Mhm.
stop focusing on it and go
Yeah.
refine it based on the feedback, and
Yes.
get that feedback. Say, well, what would you buy and why would you buy it and how much would you buy it for? And it does it have to come from me? What if it came from someone else? Like, and whatever that the construct is, please validate before you go full all in to put
Mhm.
it out there.
So good. It's so true. I've definitely done that before where I built something and then I'm like, crickets. I'm like, ooh, there was a missing
Uh-huh.
step here, but it's the learning where it's like, okay, I'm not going to do that next time.
Right.
I
No,
definitely need
big,
to
big, like
validate. Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of
Yeah.
learnings in my book too of
Yes.
doing that. And that's the
Yeah.
biggest lesson now and the biggest lens I have when I look at other people's
Mhm.
businesses. Like, do you have buyers for this?
Yeah. So good.
And if not,
Yeah.
then let's adjust it. What would they buy? That is
Mhm.
still aligned with what you want to put out in the world, but this is where we get started.
Mhm. I love it. Yeah. So tell us about this Hey Kareen app.
Yeah.
Like I know that you did the research. So who is it for and
Yeah.
how is it transforming people's lives? What does it look like? Tell us more.
I mean, this has been such a cool way for me to grow myself. So for
Mhm.
me to evolve, but also to build legacy. And I'll explain why. So initially, all my clients, and I don't want to say what's the right word, selective around who I work with when it is my time to go deep. But then
Yes.
what ends up happening is once we work on this stuff, they don't need me. I don't believe you need me for extended
Mhm.
period of time. If we've done the work we're meant to do, you're off on your own. And then you come back to me when there's the next up leveling. But what
Mhm.
happens though in between that, when they're in the work, when they're in the doing, they'd always be like, man, like they would text me and ask me a question and be like, hey, Kareen, what do I do when a client says this, or I need to fire this employee? Like, how do I do that gracefully? And what if I wanted to partner with this person? And all these like, what hey Kareen questions. And I was like, I am one person. Now I
Mhm.
have multiple clients. I have an audience and a community to serve,
Mhm.
and I want to serve them all. So how do I do that? And
Mhm.
luckily with AI now being the tech we can leverage, I cloned myself in AI,
Yes.
all my 20 years of like experience, practice, know-how, everything. If you can imagine carrying me around in your pocket when you have
Mhm.
that question. And that was life-giving not only for me because now it's no longer my capacity that's stopping the impact because
Yes.
that was my own inner strife. Like I was like, oh
Yeah.
my God, I can't reach everyone. And no one's gonna go
Yes.
read my blog or like see
Mhm.
the social post or they want like
Right.
focused energy on their
Yes.
challenge, right?
Yes.
So I originally started it and this is the testing I was just talking about. Like, how
Mhm.
do I validate that people want this? Well, I initially started with like Vox or group texting, and that was
Mhm.
exhausting. And
Mhm.
also people felt like they couldn't be anonymous because other
Mhm.
people were hearing the Q&A of it all, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
it's like, well, okay, good test bed, but I know that there's a desire for this, the ability to just ask me when you want to. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, this beginning of this year with knowing new tech coming out in the world, and my background is in tech,
Mhm.
very complex delivery projects. So I was like, how can I build this in a really quick and dirty way, in essence, like leveraging tech that's out there to make it happen. And so the concept started this February, the design of this app. And now literally we're in the middle of the launch, and it's awesome to see people using it and interacting with my AI. And they're like, my God, this sounds like you. Like, it's like my voice. You can hear me. You can even call me on the, you're talking to my AI, but it's all of me is in there. And now it can be leveraged. And that's the legacy play, because it'll continue to grow with me. Right? Like every single conversation, tool, framework, whatever, I can feed into the system, and then my members can then leverage, which I'm so excited to see, because now we're truly I'm walking alongside everyone, and we're truly growing together, which is all I ever wanted. So that's my excitement behind the Hey Kareen app. Super, super pumped.
It's so good. That's so powerful. I love this. Yeah, because it's really honoring your time, your energy, and it's honoring the collective. It's a deeper impact. It's like a win-win all around. Yeah. How beautiful to be able to lean into that space. So, oh my gosh, you're amazing. I love that you brought this idea to fruition, that people can really start to lean into it. So how does someone lean into the app? Like, and where are you hanging out? How can they start to connect with you?
Oh, amazing, Christina. This is so great that you're allowing me to share. I hang out on Insta the most. If you want to see behind the scenes of my life, business, everything, I'm raw and real there. Like, feel free to follow me at Kareen Walsh. And then basically the app access right now, you can just go to heykareen.com. You can download the app. If you want to become a founding member, you go to heykareen.com/join now. And then by the 8th, between now and the 8th of September, so I'm not even sure when this airs, but whenever your listeners interact, please let me know that you came from the show, so that I can potentially gift you something, because I have some really fun swag that we've created to go out to members who are helping us with the app. But truly, you can start right now your free trial. There's a 7-day free trial for everyone. There's also daily entrepreneur in real life. It's EIRL prompts that you get, these journal prompts on how to stay conscious about your business and take care of your health in the process, like when you become a member. Super excited about that. And then obviously, if you wanted to connect with me directly, you could just email ask@heykareen.com, and I'll be right there. Trying to connect. I honestly, I feel very fortunate to be in this space, to be able to share all that I've learned with others to leverage. Like, that's, I believe I'm a conduit for others' dreams to come true, So I love hearing from you and connecting. So thank you for having me and allowing me to share. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg. So for everyone that was leaning in, that was like, wow, I need more of this, please lean into one of these beautiful spaces. And for everyone who is tuning in, thank you for spending your most precious resource with us, your time. We are so eternally grateful for each and every one of you. And until next time.